Oh, welcome back. I know I'm not completely set up in my lab yet, but during one of my lab update videos, there's been some question about the microscope camera. There was a brief shot there where I turned it on and you saw it on the monitor, and people said the resolution looked good, better than my microscope camera. Where'd you get it? And you know, that was unintentional. I don't advertise anything or review anything unless I actually stand behind it. And this particular camera that you saw there for that brief moment, if you happen to have seen it, I don't stand behind it. So what I'd recommend is actually not buying that camera. But in the meantime, let's go over a few that I do happen to have here. Some of my older videos, believe it or not, you saw me use this. This was like one of the first, do I want a microscope before I spend a lot of money? Will it be something that interests me? Will I need it? Will I start doing small SMD solder work? And it was a $20 little eBay. Has a little brightness adjustment on it. Five or six LEDs. You can turn them up or down. 4 LEDs. Wow, 4 LEDs. Turn them up or down. If you have special software installed, you can click a button, take a picture of it here. I don't have the software installed. Never bothered. Let me see. And I think with the right USB converter, you might even be able to run this off of Android. I'm not sure if the 4 LEDs pull too much power or not. I'm going to turn off my overhead lighting here, just to give you an accurate representation of the lighting that this throws. So let me change cameras. There we go. And that's part of the problem, is the focusing on it is very tedious. Holding it still, you can see, well, there's no light. And there's full brightness. Let me see if I can get it to focus. You have to turn the back of this thing to get it to focus. It's very, very tedious. And then you have your orientation on whether you're holding it upside down or not. And in my case, I am holding it upside down. Let's turn it around. Oh, we almost had it focused. There we go. And then, of course, you can adjust the brightness of it as well. So, I mean, it can be useful. You may have seen me use it in one of the videos where I put a dime in a storage SMD container to kind of represent how big the containers are and how many parts you can fit in the storage container. It has its purposes. My original microscope camera that I started off with was the Amscope MU300 3.1 megapixel Aptina sensor, and I'm planning on doing a more in-depth review of microscope cameras here in the near future, and also an in-depth review of different microscopes, the difference between Barlow lenses, magnification heads, tri-optic, trifocal, just all the different terminologies. It's that way you don't have to go through what I went through when I purchased a microscope, which is a lot of confusion. The difference between some cameras that come with a CMOS and a CCD sensor, the difference between an Aptina sensor, a Sony sensor, a Panasonic sensor. This is the MU300 here. It's basically just a USB based powered camera. Takes 5 volt, 250 milliamps. The irony is, I found out that 250 milliamps apparently doesn't come out of the Microsoft Surface because it was still losing frame and what have you when I was trying to run it. And doing this, I believe, let me see which one took view, there we go. In doing this, I ended up, well, at first I was told that my computer was too slow. So, this Asus tablet was too slow. So I went out and bought another computer, which took me a couple months to save up a little bit of money for it, and I'm still paying it off because it's financed. Now I got a Microsoft Surface running a Core i7, 8 gig of memory, more than fast enough to handle any little camera, you would think. Find the microscope, the USB cable, there we go. And yet I still had a lot of problems with frame rate, exposure, and all sorts of things actually. Size of the sensor for this Aptina sensor. This Aptina sensor takes a, we'll talk about reduction lenses during my series of microscope review videos and stuff, but this is a half 0.5 reduction lens. If you use the wrong reduction lens, it will still work, but you're going to lose a lot more image than what you will see down through the microscope eyepieces themselves. You will always get the most field of view through the microscope eyepieces themselves, always. This is just for maybe a secondary view, I guess you could call it. I don't use it as a primary, but I wanted something that recorded video that I could use for doing videos. So we'll select our camera here. Let's go ahead and select the resolution size. It's actually at 1024 by 768. We'll go to 248 by 1536. Actually, I'm slightly off focus. Am I off focus, or is that a frame rate issue? Oh, that's a, wow. See the frame rate? Still waiting for it to catch up. USB bandwidth not sufficient. USB 3 port, USB 2, it's designed as a USB 2 camera, and yet I'm having problems. Yeah, even focusing. Did I just move the focus too fast? What's going on here? I got full brightness turned up. It's not like I'm dimming it down too much. Alright, so obvious to me right from the start that resolution won't work. Let's move to 1024 by 768. For your benefit, I'll increase this to 200% on the view. Alright, now we got some better, I guess we'll say better response rate, frame rate. We'll turn the brightness up a little bit. Let's see if we can get some better clarity out of it. Looking a little too washed out there now. Let's grab a pair of tweezers. Not bad. Looks okay. It tells me the frame rate that it's currently seeing is 25 frames a second. This took a lot to get 25 frames a second, and I do mean a lot of adjusting. And the closer you get, you start to lose that frame rate and you get a little too dark. Now you have to go back and set your white balance again. You have to change your exposure. Let's increase the exposure gain. Maybe turn your brightness up, because now it's looking too dark. There we go. So now we're at full brightness, and of course we're out of focus again, so let's go ahead and focus it back in. But to do this was a constant change. First, it's only 1024 by 768 in resolution. Next thing, my biggest issue with it is I constantly, you can't go in all the way. You won't have enough brightness to do it no matter what. That is usually about an average of what you would expect to see anyway for anything you're working on. And of course, your field of view through your eyepieces are much more. There's a little blue hair right here in the middle of the screen, and you can't even see that little blue hair. I can see it under the microscope. It's right there. I'll lift it up and we'll move it over onto the top of the R25. You can barely see it. And it's upside down. So somewhere in here there's a setting where I have to tell it to flip it the correct way. Under flip, horizontally, vertically. Is that in the correct way now? It is. Let's see if we can focus in on that little blue hair. Oh, barely. You can barely get that to focus in. It's there. Just really hard to see. It's right here. See this little blue hair? Goes over top of the R25. I can see it much better through the eyepieces though. And meanwhile, you have to have a computer to assist with this camera. And you might be able to start to hear the fan kick up on my computer because of all the post-processing it's trying to do over the image coming through USB 2.0 into the port, and all the different settings that I'm changing along here just to make this work. Okay, obviously when I bought this camera setup with this camera, this was not the best solution camera for what I needed. So back onto a camera hunt again we go. Luckily, the next camera I purchased had a Panasonic sensor, and the size of the sensor didn't require me changing my reduction lens, so I could stick with the 0.50 magnification reduction lens. So unfortunately, the DC to DC power 12 volt external power DC to DC converter died in less than a day. This is the one that you saw on my lab update review. It had some really neat features. I was actually enjoying it at first, and then, well, I don't trust anything if part of the circuit fails in less than a day, but it will still run if I power it off of USB. You know, you kind of saw what it did. It's got all kinds of weird features, but it's got some buggy firmware. It's got little issues. The DC to DC converter died out on it. You had to power it over USB. Some people, I'll put a link in the description down below, had the DC to DC converter died 3 times, and once the power management chip died, so he couldn't use the USB to power it either. Ended up buying a second camera. Found out it was actually the power supply that was spiking to 60 volts DC. My power supply didn't seem to have that issue. I checked it. Mine seemed to have died when I changed it from a Kingston micro SD card to a high-speed SanDisk Ultra, which is capable of reading at 90 megabits a second versus 30 megabits a second. So maybe the chip required more power, and just pulling that little bit of extra power for that micro SD card actually caused my DC to DC converter to fail. Either way, it doesn't put good faith in me to recommend this camera at all. For $200, you could get something better. It was nice to be able to record video directly to an SD card. It was nice not having to have a computer to support my recording the videos. And these are some of the features that I was looking forward to with this camera. The digital zoom was absolutely horrible. I've seen much better. And this one actually ran the 14 megapixel Panasonic sensor. So we'll set this one aside as well, because this one has to be returned. Now, on my hunt for another one, we ran across a TubeTech manufactured camera sold by Amscope. And this is the HDMI 720p camera. Unfortunately, it doesn't say the model make on it. I think it's the U200M. I'll put a link down to the description down below. These are new cameras to Amscope, so unfortunately they honestly did think that this recorded video at 720p, because why would it have an SD card? Valid logical thinking, but unfortunately the SD card is here to only take pictures, not record video. So you're still going to need an HDMI input to a computer input to actually record video on something like this. But since we have it here, and since then I've worked with them, they've updated their website, they've corrected it now. It doesn't say it records video in 720p. We're going to move on to another camera. I'm going to have to send this one back. And in getting another camera, hopefully we can get something that I can do a full review on and recommend to you guys. Now, I shouldn't say this is one I'm not going to recommend to you guys. If you're looking to record video directly to an SD card without a computer assisted, if recording video is important to you, which it is to me, for me to do picture-in-picture videos with a microscope and show micro SD soldering and everything else, it is important to me. Now to you, maybe you don't care about recording video. To you, if you don't record about recording video, this camera may be perfect for you, and it will save you a couple $100 compared to the one that does record video to an SD card. So I'm not going to say it's not the one, This runs the Sony IMX222 sensor, half-inch reduction lens. Takes about 8 seconds to boot up. It does have an HDMI output, so we can show you this at the same time. On the monitor, let me flip my monitor over. And it has an OSD or on-screen display. So you see this mouse here is the mouse that I'm running. It's plugged directly into this camera. You can take snapshot pictures to the SD card. It came with a SanDisk 8 gig Ultra, which is actually a fairly impressive memory card for this kind of camera. And it does have exposure compensation. I'm turn the light up all the way. There you go. And you can see on this one, we have a blue string. Slightly out of focus. Let me go and bring that in a little bit better. There you go. But you can see that blue string. So let's increase my sharpness a little bit. There we go. Now we're looking clear. Maybe increase the contrast a little bit. There we go. Now we obviously have a picture of a blue string there. We can do auto exposure, or we could do manual. If we do manual exposure, I can increase my gain and set this back a little bit, and you can see a much clearer blue string. That's zoomed in all the way. And if I zoom out, the camera changed slightly on me, sorry. I'm going to have to actually lift up the height of my microscope here for a second. I just need a little bit more height for this camera. Come on. There we go. That's better. Now with so many cables attached to it, you got your mouse, your HDMI, your power, you might want to strap the cables somewhere close on the microscope, because otherwise you're just, yeah, things just change constantly here. Focus it down. See how the camera just turned just because I moved the height of the microscope. And now I have to remember where I put that little blue string. There it is, the little blue string. So you can definitely see that little blue string a lot better with this camera. This is the Sony sensor. Really do appreciate the Sony sensors. And you can see me pick up that little blue string. I can't talk today, and move it around and set it back down. So again, if you're not looking to record video, I apparently have some flux on my tweezers. Come on. If you're not looking to record video, this very well may be the camera for you. If you're just looking for a digital image, and it also has the ability, let's put it back on auto exposure. It has little numbers up top here, so it gives you an idea of distance. I'm not quite sure how it works, haven't tried it. You can do a white balance just by simply, where did my display go? That's information, there it is. Clicking the white balance, pushing the white under it, click the white balance, and that will give you a kind of a white balance reset there. DC, AC, it's got a refresh rate, auto, flicker, DC, AC 50 Hz, AC 60 Hz. And a lot of the sharpness, denoise, saturation, gamma, contrast, blue, red, green, grain, and exposure time if you don't choose auto exposure. But there's also exposure compensation. I find that exposure compensation around 45 is best, and leave it on auto exposure. That way, as I change my distances, it will autocorrect for me. And there's that string again. And the one thing that I was really shocked on the quality of is digital zoom. I usually don't recommend digital zoom, but that actually did kind of surprise me on the clarity of that digital zoom. Now try to touch this to focus it while you're doing digital zoom. That's very tricky because you're just going to shake the camera all around the place. Just breathing on it wrong will cause this camera to flip out now when you're digitally zoomed in that close and optically zoomed in with the microscope. But you can see it works better than I thought. That is really not bad. And that has a lot to do with the hardware. Whether it's running an FPGA or it's running an ARM processor, I don't know. You can orientate your image right from the on-screen display. You can freeze the image, so now no more shaking around. That's stuck there. You can pull up little crosshairs, and these crosshairs change colors. You have your red. You can also change your direction of your crosshair and where you put them. You have your red, what are the different colors here? Pull up my crosshairs. I think if I click on a line, there it is. Green and blue. Red, green, and blue, pretty much. You can remove one crosshair and just leave the other. So if you only want one crosshair on the screen, we'll change that to green. Kind of nice, visibly noticeable. You can also pull the crosshairs up and hit center. It'll automatically center it for you. Or you can delete it, and that deletes them both. I think if I pull them back up, it brings them both up now. I click on a line. Let's say if both of my lines are completely off center here, and I want to bring these back in, I just click center. I click on this line, and I click center, and they both come back in. So really some nice features. And you can take away this display, and the bottom one goes away. You put your mouse back down, it comes up, and it goes away. Mouse back down, up, goes away. And it will give you the firmware version and everything. TubeTech firmware version, tubetech.com. And of course you can take a picture. That's image number 7. Now there is one more camera that I will be getting, which will be the 1080p version. And it's not a question of 720p versus 1080p. I think a lot of that's really overrated. 720p and 1080i are practically the same. I know there's going to be some people arguing in the comments about that. Don't bother, I'm not going to reply to you. It's just not worth debating over, especially when I'm rendering the video one time already, and whether it's 30 frames, 60 frames a second, doesn't matter, and then I'm giving it to Google to re-render the video, and re-encode the video a second time. And there's already encoding and rendering on a video if your camera is recording video for you directly to the SD card. So I'm trying to get a camera that records in H.264 or H.265, so that way the video format is the same as what my video camera that you're watching this video on right now records in, and therefore you kind of have what's the word I'm looking for? Hopefully trying to keep the same quality beyond all of them, I guess you could say. And yeah, I don't want to get into the whole logistics of this versus that versus other things, and there's a lot going on when it comes to video quality. All I want is the same video to be recorded from all my devices and to be clear and visible for you to watch my channel. So in this case, this camera almost did the job if it really recorded to the SD card, but unfortunately it didn't. So it's unfortunate. It's got a really nice on-screen display. In case you're not looking to record video to the SD card, and this is the camera for you, and I do have it right now before I have to return it, because since it doesn't record video, it does have to go back. Amscope has updated their website and their Amazon site now to say that it doesn't record video, so nobody else will accidentally buy this, hopefully. Let's go ahead and pull up these still images that I took a picture of so I can delete and format that card since it's going back. Put my cap back on my reduction lens to keep the dust out. And let's see here. Let's pull up my PC. So I believe this is the picture that I took with the blue string. So it takes really nice quality pictures. And the pictures, if you look at the file info, the picture is 1920 by 1080. So it, in the metadata, has the timestamp and everything in there. So it really, it's got a 1080 resolution of taking the picture, and it outputs, I believe, 30 frames a second, 720p over the HDMI port to your monitor or TV or your HDMI image capture card or external HDMI image capture device. You can buy a device for $150 on Amazon that, you know, you can just plug the HDMI from the camera into this device, and this device will record it to your hard drive or an SD card, or it takes a USB to a computer, such and such and such. So if you want to use a combination of things, if you want to buy the $200 camera now, $220, and then later buy that external HDMI recording device for another $150, that puts you at about $370. That might be worth it to you versus $430 for the 1080p versus type of camera. And plus, you can use that if you're a gamer. You can use that capture card device for other things like capturing video off of your Android tablet playing a game, or off your PS3 or your Xbox 360 or PS4 these days. Whatever the case is, you know, that way you might want to keep two separate devices. That way it would be a lot more feature enriched and fulfilling for you. Now, I don't need to capture HDMI from anything else in my house. I don't do gaming and stuff, so not for me, but I figured it's a suggestion. It might be something for you. Let's go ahead and delete these images, but I am curious of one thing. USB drive. What is the format? So this is a FAT32, so this should be able to take up to a 4 gig size file if it did videos at FAT32, before 4 gig is its file size limit. So if it did record 30 frames a second, let's say 30 frames a second, FAT32 4 gig file size limit, 720p, that would be a decent sized video. What, an hour, maybe an hour and a half before it had to cut over to a new video, or you might have had to hit record again. So when I get the 1080p version in, we'll see what the file formatting is on that, and the quality, and if it records. I think it displays at 60 frames a second to the TV or monitor, if you have a TV or monitor to view at 60 frames a second. If yeah, I believe it displays at 60 frames a second if I'm not mistaken, but it records at 25 or 30 frames a second. But when I get that camera in, we'll go over that, and I'll show you that one too. And this camera will finally suit my needs and match exactly what I've been looking for. But in the meantime, I did want to clarify the camera that you guys saw on that lab update video. Not the one I would recommend for you. Not unless you want to spend your time constantly fixing that camera over and over and over again. Or maybe if it dies, you know, you could, I don't know, maybe if it dies you could still use the camera, but you'll have to power it if the power management chip didn't die on you. You'll have to power it through USB constantly. But let's go over some of the other, you know, but again, $20 more gets you this camera, and I find the Sony sensors to be a lot better, especially digital zoom wise, special clarity, sharpness, the amount of light it captures, the f-stop is capable of doing. The Sony sensors are so much better than the Panasonic and the Aptina sensors, and I would definitely recommend this if you didn't care about recording video to SD card. I would recommend this over top of the $200 14 megapixel advertised whatever no name different market brand camera that you see on eBay and all over Amazon right now. Go the extra $20 get this instead. I'll put a link down below in the description as well. Let's show you some other things that this camera comes with in case you do decide to go that direction, or if you want to wait until I get the 1080p camera and we'll do a review on that. Maybe you want to wait because recording to SD isn't more important. There are a couple more features that the 1080p has. There's image comparison. I can actually not only play back my video, I can compare my video, which is fairly nice. I don't know why this is flipping out. Thank you, Windows Update. So I can open up the folder of all the images and videos. I can play the video back right from the camera. I can do image comparison where one image will be on the left side of the screen, one image will be on the right, so the before and after the work. All the other features I think are the same. It has the record to the SD, it has capture picture to the SD. There might be about one or two more features I'm missing in the 1080p version that's coming to me. And it does have a slightly better, and I do say slightly better, Sony sensor. It's got the IMX236 versus the IMX222. Not too much of a big difference in quality, at least not for microscope work. That for this kind of PCB work and SMD soldering, I don't think you'll notice a difference. Some of the other things that this version, the 720p, and 720p captures 1080p images to the SD card for you. There is no comparison, so you can't compare images. It does have 30 frames a second, 720p output directly to your TV or monitor or HDMI capture device. It does come with the 8 gig SanDisk Ultra SD card. It comes with the mouse for the OST menu control. It comes with a very, very nice flat cable Honeywell HDMI gold tip plated cable. I was really impressed with this cable, even though I didn't get a chance to use it. I didn't want to use it or the mouse or anything because it was going back, so why use it? And in addition to that, it has this little, I seem to have dropped it down in the slot, there we go. This is a Honeywell right angle adapter, so basically you put this on the Honeywell flat ribbon cable and it comes right off the camera and it points the cable at a right angle, so that way if you're dealing with confined spaces, it makes it a lot easier to deal with the HDMI cable. So for everything that this for everything that this camera comes with, is not a bad price. I would definitely recommend this over the 14 megapixel one that constantly has the power management and DC-DC converter chip issues. Takes about 8 seconds to boot up. It's very basic, simple. USB port, SD card slot, HDMI slot, and DC power jack. 12 volts, 1 amp. Standard C mount on the front. And comes with a lot of good things for the money. For the on-screen display, and the mouse control, the mouse, the cable, very nice quality HDMI cable. Very important, unlike the other camera where the other gentleman said that his camera blew up because the power supply was shooting to 60 volts on spikes, and he believes that was the cause of his DC to DC converter failures. Unlike that camera, which I'm also sending back due to that DC to DC converter failure, this power supply is actually certified, UL certified. Also has an interchangeable adapter for international or US plugs, but it is UL certified, and that puts a little bit more faith that this is not going to spike out 60 volts DC into the camera and blow it up. So yeah, the little things do matter. Sometimes you pay for the little things, but sometimes the little things make all the difference, and especially in the faith of your hard-earned money and what you're paying for. So I'm going to wrap this back up because Amscope is willing to correct the issue and take this back. They've also corrected their website, as I mentioned. They've also corrected their Amazon webpage as well, so that's now displaying the correct information that it takes images. But I figured, since I have it here, I might as well do a quick review on it, because just, I don't know, just kind of made sense. And whether this would be my top recommendation, no, I don't think so. Maybe not. Maybe it will. Maybe the 1080p will be the top recommendation. But again, it depends on your needs. This isn't going to be my top recommendation if you need to record to the SD card. This will be my top recommendation if you want to record to an SD capture device or you don't care about recording your video. I would definitely choose this one. I was very impressed with the quality of it, and they did a really nice job with this, and made it fairly affordable compared to a lot of the other cameras out there. Now, originally, I believe the MU300 with the Aptina sensor, 3.1 megapixel CMOS camera that I got with the microscope set. Unfortunately, originally these used to come with a reduction lens. I think part of increasing the technology, the feature base and everything in microscope cameras these days is making them more affordable, yet making them more affordable means we can throw in a cheap mouse and a cheap 8 gig SD card and even an HDMI cable and everything, but the reduction lens is a separate cost. So make sure you check with the engineers and get the correct reduction lens. If you talk to the company you're looking to purchase the camera from, they should be able to and have enough knowledge to tell you which will be the proper reduction lens to get the most viewing angle from the camera you're looking to purchase. So this is such a tight fit in here. I'm very worried about repacking this with that being such a tight fit, but it came that way, wrapped in this styrofoam kind of box thing, so I guess that's the way it goes back. I mean, it just came in poppy envelope stuff. So, alright, well, anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully that clarified a little bit. Stay tuned. The lab's almost done. I just released an update video on it today, as a matter of fact. And hopefully, in a couple weeks, I'll be able to do a review on the final camera. Maybe I'll mix the three comparisons side by side, and except for the one that has the DC-to-DC and power management chip issue, I'm not going to even bother reviewing that. I really don't want people to purchase that one. It's really not worth it when you can get this one for another $20 and less recording to the SD card is that important to you, but longevity is also more important to me. If you're going to spend $200, make sure it lasts more than a day or a couple of hours of usage. If you don't believe me, there's a review on Amazon under a different company. I'll put a link to his video showing that it died, and also another gentleman's review who actually took the time to repair his one camera twice before it died on him the third time, before they figured out it was actually the power supply in his case. In my case, I think it was just different. I think it's just really bad engineering design and circuit board, PCB design and layout for the components that they use are really cheap. And yeah, if I'm going to spend the money on a camera, I shouldn't have to take it apart, fix it myself, rebuild it, and replace it with better components to make sure that it's going to continue to work. So, thanks for watching. Keep on tinkering. I promise I'll be back with the 1080p version of the camera and other things coming up here soon in the future. And the lab is coming along, and I'll keep you guys updated. So keep on tinkering, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. Thanks for watching.